Hello everybody, in this video I'm going to talk about hobbies and language learning, and I feel that for me language learning is a hobby. It's one of my biggest hobbies. I have a few hobbies, and for some people it might not feel that way. It might be that you're learning a language because you have to learn it, so you might be learning it for a language program, for part of a university degree. You might be learning it as parts of something because you've moved to another country and you're finding it difficult to learn the language. Or it might have started out as a hobby and then suddenly you're finding it difficult and it's become more like a chore, more like an effort to carry on learning. So I want to try to give you some ideas and some kind of inspiration maybe to try to see the language learning as a hobby or try to connect it up with other hobbies you have in order to make life easier for you. So I don't think life was really meant to be a struggle. And I think that if you're struggling with something, then you're putting a block up, and the barrier makes you feel 10 times more of a struggle, and it will become harder and harder. So there has to be easier ways of doing things. So one of my hobbies is juggling, as you probably know, and I've only really been practicing juggling for the last few years, mainly. I mean, I did learn it about 30 years ago, and I went to a circus school and did flying trapeze, and I did juggling, but I did juggling myself independently. I was never taught it by a circus teacher, and I was rubbish at flying trapeze, by the way. I only did about 30 lessons, and I could only do a couple of tricks on that. So with the juggling, I've been thinking about this lately, and it's almost like as if there's a correlation between um, when you learn something, you can add skills to it, so you can add more and more and more to your repertoire. So with juggling, obviously, this is the basic maneuver that most people know, and it's called the cascade. And this trick, well, it's not really a trick. This is the basic movements of juggling. And once you know this one, then you can go on to start learning other tricks. So it's a bit like languages with this. With language learning, you can't just become fluent overnight. It does take time. But if you can see your baby steps and your baby step progression, then you'll be able to start becoming confident and get more inspired to go on to learn something new. So I learned this about 30 years ago, but I never really was any good at it. I couldn't really keep that up for so long. So to me, there's a correlation between this and my languages. I learned Spanish a long time ago, and I could never really have a good conversation in it, but it was always there in me. And it just takes practice, really. So it's the practice of doing this all the time that has helps me maintain a kind of good, steady flow of these juggling balls. And it's the same with languages. By practicing and practicing, I've managed to kind of be able to speak a language without thinking, but only to this basic level. So if I wanted to do something like this, which is a bit more advanced, then I'm doing, I've learnt a new trick, and I've learnt this through different muscle memory, basically. So jugglers often talk about muscle memory, and learning a new trick um, kind of takes a bit of time because you have to sometimes break it down into stages. There's a brilliant YouTube channel for this, by the way, called Taylor Tries, and Taylor Glenn is a brilliant juggler. She's been juggling since she was a teenager, and she puts on really good juggling uh, tutorials which break it down into bits. So I followed quite a few of these. So last year I was trying to learn this one called the windmill, and I can kind of do it now, but it's not really perfect because what I'm doing is this ball that comes up here is meant to go over. So all the balls are meant to go around in a circle, and I haven't kind of mastered it yet, but it's a work in progress and it's better than it was. So thankfully for me, having a YouTube channel has really helped me look back at things and how they were, and then I can see how I am now, and I can sort of see my progress. So my point I'm making is that to have a hobby sometimes can be like a development tool. So you'll develop yourself and you become better and better at things as time goes on. So for me, having this as a hobby has really helped me to sort of not only just to get into the zone, because it's almost like meditating doing juggling, but to sort of challenge myself each period of time to just do some new trick. Here's the factory, by the way. I tried, this was one of my challenges on YouTube last year. And I don't think I ever really did a full video of this, but I'll try and do some factory work. Oops, good start. I can only do this a little bit because this is quite an awkward trick actually. It's quite a physical trick as well because you have to move quite quickly. But again, it's a work in progress, and keep doing it, and I'll be like a competent factory juggler before you know it. Well, might be next year or year after. I don't know. Doesn't matter when. So for those people who don't have a hobby or say they don't have a hobby, um, perhaps if you were to see your language learning as a hobby and turn it into a hobby rather than a chore, it would make life easier for you. So I have a volunteer who said to me, I don't have any hobbies. He's retired and he works very hard in his life. And he said once he gave up his job and retired, he said, I don't have any hobbies. I just go to the pub with my friends, have a meal here and there, and go abroad sometimes. And I said to him, well, one of your hobbies could be traveling then, if you go abroad. He said, oh, no, I'm not really interested in traveling around, just go there for a nice break. And then I was looking up a list of hobbies to try to, for this video, to try to find a list of hobbies to give some examples. And one of the things that came up was actually volunteering, which I'd never thought about before, as volunteering as actually being a hobby. And this person who volunteers in my shop actually does have a hobby because he volunteers in my shop. And when he started, he didn't know how to do certain things, and I've trained him on some things, and he's learnt skills. He's learnt, customer service skills, which he probably already had those anyway. But he's learnt, about the gift aid and pricing things and displaying things in the shop. So actually, he does have a hobby. He volunteers. So it's having this mindset of having the attitude towards what you're doing rather than having it as a struggle. So I think if you can see your language learning as a hobby, it will really benefit you. By the way, I'm making this video as a monologue because I don't have any editing facilities at the moment, but I'll get that sorted out soon. I've got some glitches on my PC, but it's easier just to do this as a monologue. So that's why I may have repeated myself a couple of times. I don't know. Okay, so if you have a hobby, but you don't see your language learning as a hobby, what sort of hobbies do you have? So do you have a sports hobby, for example? Or do you do, I don't know, flower arranging or something like this? Is there a way that you can tie up your language learning with a hobby? So, for example, I know a friend of mine who watches my videos. Hello, April, if you're watching this one. She said to me that she goes running, and I know she's run a couple of marathons, which is fantastic. And she ties her language learning in with this by, if she's learning a language, she'll be running along and she'll try to convert the things she sees into her target language vocabulary. So she'll be running along and go, oh, this is a road, the road word for road in her language, street sign, beach, and things like this. And I know other people go to the gym as a hobby and they listen to their language podcasts or their language lessons while they're in the gym. So there's another way of doing it. If you're one of these people that has kind of a passive hobby, like playing video games or playing Candy Crush Saga or this kind of thing, you can always change your PC to your target language, and that way you'll get more input and more exposure to the language that way. And then people say, oh, I don't really have any hobbies, I just watch TV. Well, if you're watching TV, you could be watching Netflix and watching it with the subtitles on and trying to learn your language this way. So I don't think there are lots of things you can do without struggling when it comes to language learning and make it like a lot effortless for yourself. So my other hobby is music, and I play the recorder. I play lots of different sizes of recorder, and I started playing recorder when I was very young. Like I was about 5 or 6 years old, as a lot of people do. But I actually liked it, and people go through this phase where they learn recorder for 1 year, 2 years, and they give it up. And then when I was a teenager, I played in a consort band. I played recorder with 3 other people, and then I gave that up because I was at work and went abroad. And then I didn't really take up music again until I was about 30 years old, and I played clarinet in a jazz band when I was 30, or like a wind band. And then I bought a saxophone and I played that for a bit. And then I didn't do music for many, many years again until I moved to here in Portsmouth, and I joined the Hampshire Recorder Sinfonia. And I started playing a tenor recorder, which is one about this big. And the orchestra had about 30 odd people in the orchestra at that time with different instruments. It's ranging from sopranino right down to contrabass, which is a huge one. So I'd been in the recorder orchestra for about a year, maybe 9 months, a year or year and a half. And we were due to have a break for 6 weeks or something. And somebody said to me, or somebody said to all of us, would anybody like to borrow this contrabass recorder for the weekend or for the break? So I said, okay. So I managed to get this contrabass recorder and practice it for quite a way. So it's a big monster, everything. It stood this high, and it's made of plywood. And I think I've got a YouTube video of me doing Happy Christmas or something with it. And we wish you a Merry Christmas, that's right. And I took it home, and then I brought it back to the orchestra to give back. And the conductor said to me, oh, you're playing this term. And it really threw me out of my comfort zone because I'd never played an instrument in a bass clef before. I'd only ever played treble clef. So there was a kind of learning curve. But suddenly my hobby was taking me out of myself, and it was making me expand and learn new skills. And in the same way, since I've been in that orchestra, I met a friend who's plays recorder as well, and we practice it each week around her house. And she gives me music that challenges me and makes me become a better player. Actually, even though I can't play those pieces, it brings me out of my comfort zone, and the practicing of them helps me develop as a musician. So even though I've only been doing it for about 5 or 6 years, my recorder playing skills have developed, and it's a hobby, and it's something that I haven't. I'm not studying it, but I'm doing it as a hobby. Am I getting my point across here? I don't know really. Let's do a bit more juggling. So what else can I do? I can do the columns. Or this is called. Oops. This is called fake columns. So the more different skills, the more different tricks you can learn in juggling, the more you can add skills later. So I'm trying to do this one at the moment, which is called side swaps. And you throw 2 balls up in the air and throw another one to the side. And it's a bit like, there's a trick called the box, which goes around like this. I just can't do that yet. I can't get my head around it. But this is one I thought might be a good transition to go from this to the box. I can't do this yet, but I can only do it once or twice. Nope, can't do it. It's freaky because it's different muscles again that you're using. But I need to break down the movements, of doing things like this, and then things like this, where you have one going up and one going across. And another thing I can do is this. So you try to throw the 2 balls and clap and bring them down again. So it's kind of like a precursor to the trick, like an exercise to break it down. So you can do this with languages as well. If you struggle with your language, you can break it down into bits. Okay, I think I've said enough, and I think I've made my point, hopefully. And I'd be interested to know what your hobbies are. Do you have any hobbies other than language learning, if language learning isn't really your hobby? Or do you see your own language learning as a hobby? I'd be interested to know about that as well. So thanks very much for watching. And if you haven't yet subscribed, I'd be grateful if you could do that. If you've watched all the way through to this 15-minute video, wow, I can talk, can't I? And I'll see you in the next video. Thank you very much.